Hey guys, Sage here with Dirt Time Adventures, and today we're looking at the sixth principle of survival, which is to manage caloric intake and expenditure. Survival really is a calories game, and so we want to break that down. So when it comes to survival, you really need to have a hunter-gatherer mindset. It's so important that as you are going about and you are scouting out your area, that you're always keeping food in mind. Once you've found a good water source and found ways to procure it, then you need to start thinking about food. Of course, rescue is always on your mind as well. But keeping food in mind, as you're out and about, it could be everything from harvesting wild plants to finding edible fruits, or to looking for animal signs so that you might be able to set up a trap. While I was out walking along the creek side here, I came across these pawpaw trees, and sure enough, they are starting to produce fruit. Now, a quick way to be able to check this fruit is whenever you begin to start squeezing it and feeling it, that you're going to have some soft spots. If it feels hard like a pear, then it's not quite ripe yet. But it is an amazing fruit. It's got packed full of macronutrients, and you just cannot beat the taste. It's got like a banana mango flavor to it, and it's just one of the most amazing fruits that you can get in the wild. You can't even get it in your grocery stores because it's very difficult to grow and to propagate. But if you find a food source like this, you definitely cannot let it go to waste. Now, if it's not quite ripe, it can make you sick, so you need to make sure that it's not bitter and doesn't have any foul taste. But as you can see here, once you cut it open, see if I can get that focus there for you guys, it's got these little seeds in it. And it kind of smells like a plant, or kind of like almost a banana, what kind of word is that? But a banana type texture and smell to it as well. So if you check out our blog at survivalschool.us, you'll see the post about the amazing pawpaw, so you can find out more information about identifying this particular plant. But it's important that you're very aware of all the plants in your area when it comes to harvesting wild edibles and medicinal plants. So one of the greatest benefits to going out and scouting for your food and other survival resources is you never know what you're going to find. Like we discussed in one of the earlier episodes of the 6 Principles of Survival, we talked about assessing your environment and knowing your surroundings. And so anytime that you can find a resource such as this little cave inlet, you just saved yourself tons of calories from having to build a shelter. Shelter building is one of the quickest ways to burn through your reserved energy. So if simply by scouting out your surrounding areas and looking for the resources and food, then you can find different amazing little resources that you can use, or crevices or terrain features that you can use to your benefit so that you're not burning unnecessary calories. If I would have found this, little cave inlet from the get-go, I could have saved myself tons of energy from having to build a shelter. So when considering food options, I tend to break things down into 3 different categories. Everything from fish to small game and plant life. Now, unless you're experienced with being able to positively identify plants, I encourage you to stick with some of the basics. Dandelions, clovers, and violets are perfect plants that most people typically can identify. But some really vital plants that I encourage people to learn are greenbrier, and then this giant field all behind me right here is nettle. Now nettle, I'm getting stung like crazy on my legs right now, so this is for you guys. But it's got tons of tiny little stinging hair follicles on it. So let me give you a close-up. This one here is wood nettle. I don't know if you guys can see that. Hopefully you can. But every one of those are little hypodermic needles that release little acids into your skin. But it does also have tons of macronutrients in it. So we want to harvest some of this and our hope is to get on some crawfish and be able to make a crawfish and nettle type gumbo stew. Also all along the ground here is what is called creeping Charlie or ground ivy, and it is also an amazing edible. Let me try to zoom in on some of that for you. Often grows on riversides and creek sides. This here is your purple clover. It grows throughout the year and is readily available for harvest. This plant here looks very similar to your nettles, but you'll notice that it has a square stem and a little bit slightly different leaves. And these ones are very aromatic. Hidden in all this thick stuff is burdock, which is another excellent plant. You can wrap up your fish and other various foods in it, and it makes a great addition. These large parallel veined leaflets are going to be some of our plantain. And once again, very delicious, edible, and medicinal plant. All right, go. Come. All right, let's go. Let's go. Alright, so anytime you come across an amazing resource like this little inlet of water, it is going to be packed full of food. So what we're going to try to do is do some crawfishing and then cook those up, and then we're going to use some of the leftovers to try to catch some fish too. So anytime that you are in the process of food procurement, you need to always be thinking about the next meal. What am I going to do to procure that next meal? And so if I can catch crawfish by hand, turn around and use the leftovers for bait to catch fish, and then when I catch the fish, I use the guts and intestines of the fish to catch more fish, or to stick in traps and bait for traps like deadfalls and stuff. It's a continual process of building that next meal. So let's see if we can get on some crawfish. Oh, you got film? Mm-hmm. So there's a little bitty guy. We need to get on some bigger ones though, so we may use him for fish bait. Ow! Alright, it's a little bit bigger one right there. That's almost eater size. What you really want to make sure is you find when you start looking for these, they got pretty good sized claws. And you're going to get a little bit of meat in the tails and in their claws. So these guys right here, they will pinch you. It doesn't hurt too bad, but it'll definitely enough to let you know. There's what we're looking for right there. That's the size of the crawfish we're going to get a nice bite out of. Full big tail, big claws. This is really eating size right here. Anything smaller than this are just going to be small little bites, but a guy this size right here, he's actually going to make a nice little meal, and you could probably, as big as his claws are, almost get enough to eat the meat out of his claws. So we got a pretty good mess of crawfish. 4 or 5 pretty good sized ones, and then a bunch of little ones. This guy right here, he's trying to get out. That's one of the biggest I got. And the key is to dispatch these at the most humane way possible. Got some little quick rigged chopsticks, And what I want to do now is get this water to a rolling boil before I ever put them in it. You'll notice as soon as they hit the water, they're pretty much dispatched. They're kicking and twerking a little bit now, but that's primarily from their nerves. You'll see them turning pretty rapidly. They're turning orange colored. Okay. I'm going to begin to add in some nettle. Add in a little bit more nettle. Going to add a little bit of this mint. I believe this to be of the Perilla variety, just to add a little bit of flavor. We're not adding any of the real big ones, but some of these young leaves. And then you'll see all behind me is the creeping Charlie, the ground ivy. We'll put some of that in there as well. Let all that cook up. You can see these crawfish are taking on a beautiful, nice color. It's like gourmet eating in the bush. Look at that big one. You mainly want to keep cooking them until the shell starts to crack open. You'll see the white meat starting to form in there. We'll let them cook a little bit longer with some of this nettle. Little creekside gumbo on the side of the river. Once again, we're going to try to get on some fish and show you a little bit of technique with some of our survival fishing kits. But the biggest thing to keep in mind is that survival is a calories game. It's all about saving your calories and preserving those. Measuring and deciding, is the calorie expenditure worth the calorie intake? And everything you do in a survival situation needs to be based off of that. Whether you're foraging for plants, setting out traps, which we're going to talk about in our second part of this sixth principle. We're going to look at plants and fish, fishing and crawfish in the first part, and the second part we're going to talk about small game and show you some traps. So stick with us. We're going to get ready to eat some of this little gumbo up, and we'll move on to the next technique. So all the nettles are definitely soft. All the crawfish have definitely turned colors. Most of their shells are starting to crack. We are good to go. Isn't that beautiful? The great thing about making a stew out of any of your foods is you can get all the nutrients from the water as well. So when you get done eating these, you can have the nutrients. So got them all cooked and cooled down, and I just want to show you my little technique for processing out crawfish. Now there's several different ways to do it, but I pretty much come back here where the back of the crawfish is connected and slowly begin to pull that piece out. A lot of people like to suck the head. Tons of nutrients and juices in there, and you can always save those too. Put them back in the pot and eat them up that way as well. Then I come in here and slowly but surely begin to crack away the spine, removing all the little outer shell of the crawfish. Now if you have silverware, this is much easier. You use a little fork to pry them out, but when you're in the bush, you make do with what you got. And there's a full chunk of little meat. Sometimes the little bigger ones, they'll have a little vein there that you can squeeze out some of the excrement, and that whole little piece right there is edible. It's delicious. Some of the best crawfish you can get, eaten right off the water's edge. Wrap up a little bit of that meat into some of the nettle. Make a little crawfish roll. I love nettles, one of my favorite wild edibles. Mixed with the crawfish, you just can't go wrong. So I want to take a second and just talk to you about my little cook kit that I use to cook up the crawfish. Usually I don't carry a kit this large, but today it worked out perfectly because I was able to store some of the crawfish in one of the pots and cook in the other. I was also able to use one of the plates for a lid, and then if I needed to, I could have cooked some fish in the frying pan and then cooked up some tea in the little kettle and the perfect little teacups to go with it. So anyways, this is the Endure Cook Kit that we sell on our website, survivalgear.us. bluegill.
Getting a bobber.
So it's not a huge fish, but definitely a meal, easy to procure. But just by using the crawfish bait, I was able to turn around and catch a bigger meal. And that's really your goal when it comes to food procurement, is always thinking of the next meal and keeping in mind that every calorie counts. So using the M-Rod, this is a great survival fishing rod. The pole breaks down, and it's just, we've caught everything from big old tarpon to little bitty shiners with it. So having a good survival fishing kit is so underrated. Make sure you got something in your pack that you can use to help you procure food. So we had a great time today, got on some crawfish, was able to cook them up and enjoy a nice meal, turn around and use some of the extra crawfish parts and was able to catch some fish. And all in all, it was a great day. We've been able to have a good couple meals, very little energy expenditure for a lot of caloric intake. So that's really what's vital. Having essential tools as well, something as simple as an M-Rod or some type of pack rod, is a great way to be able to have a means to procure food. All primitive methods of fishing and trapping are extremely energy consuming. They will consume energy extremely fast. You'll burn through your calories very quickly. So something as simple as an M-Rod fishing pole that you can pick up at survivalgear.us, you can't go wrong. So guys, get out there, practice your food procurement skills, because this is what's going to separate you from surviving and thriving. Well, thanks for checking out another episode. Please be sure to share and subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate all your comments and your support. Just be sure to contact me anytime you have any questions about any of my videos. And as always, I want to encourage you guys to get outdoors, practice these skills, and until next time, keep it practical, primitive, and prepared.